Georgia Allen. Are you here, Georgia?
I am here. I am here. I am here. All
No,
excited.
no doubt. Georgia Allen.
How are you today?
I'm blessed to be in the land of the living. I ain't got nothing to complain about.
I hear you. So glad. So
Yeah.
glad. Well, I'm so excited as always. I am Georgia F. Allen, your noonday host at for GA for Justice. And as always, we'd like to thank Mr. Henderson Vaughn, aka Captain 85, aka the Dream Maker, who opens up the airwaves to us each and every week so that we can bring to our listening audience a conversation for information, a conversation for correction when necessary, as well as a conversation for transformation. As you know, every single month, I devote time to Kwanzaa principles. So the month of January, we devoted time to unity or Umoja. And this month, of course, is Ujaima. Kujichagulia, which is self-determination. We're going to have a couple of guys coming on that no doubt about it, no doubt or doubt it, they are self-determined. And self-determination is to define ourselves, name ourselves, create for ourselves, and speak for ourselves. And do not allow anyone, absolutely no one, to define us, to speak for us, to create for us, but we're going to do it ourselves. And so I just want you guys to listen in today as we share a little bit about unions and how important they are. But before I get started with that, we this month we decided to pay tribute to Joe Madison all month long. And of course, Joe Madison was a civil rights activist who passed away on January the 31st. And I always wondered why I connected with him. Well, his birthday is in June, and he, like myself, is a Gemini. His birthday is 3 days after my birthday, and he's energetic, so I relate to him so well. But what I absolutely loved about Joe Madison is that he was one of those people who is an icon. He's a legend. He's a history maker. But the thing about him was he was a fighter for justice, even if he had to stand alone and fight alone. And so that's what I really like so much about him. And we don't want our folks to be forgotten. Okay. He worked long and hard on behalf of the Black community, became a president of the NAACP branch at 24 years old, one of the youngest NAACP presidents ever in history. And the thing that was also great about Mr. Joe Madison, or we always call him the Black Eagle, he was unapologetic voice for justice. And he fought for justice until his last day. He never stopped fighting for justice. He never stopped fighting for our people. And so I want to take a moment and just remember him. And his one of his favorite saying was, "What are you going to do about it?" And so we got a couple of guys coming on today, and I will assure you that they heard that message, whether they heard it in their ear or whether they heard it through their spirit. What are you going to do about it? Because we got two guys who are definitely working to do something about injustice here in the city of Virginia Beach. My first guest is Mr. Terry Green. He's with UE Local 111, Virginia Beach City Workers Union. He is the president of the union, or as they sometimes say, he's the chair. But he has been working on collective bargaining here in the city of Virginia Beach, trying to make sure that people are treated fairly, that they have opportunities for fair wages, benefits, and are treated well. So we're excited about him. Also, we have Chris Hollis. Now, Chris sent me a bio. So this is going to take a little bit of time because Chris sent me his whole history. Hey, Chris. Hey, Terry. Chris is a social justice and trade labor organizer whose work is focused on organizing folks who toil for a living to improve their conditions of employment through collective power and fighting for social justice for those who have been historically disenfranchised in our society. Chris became socially conscious of the plight of working people when, at the early age of 18, Chris attended many vocational labor trade schools and four-year universities, UNC Greensboro, where he studied to advance his literacy and social consciousness. Chris continued his education and specialized in 7 different career fields and became a career federal employee for 15 years before leaving federal service, answering his call as a trade union, trade labor, and social justice organizer from his personal experience of struggle. The working class struggles, both in the private and public sectors that Chris experienced, range from being a union steward for the AFGE-1770 Federal Union, filing charges against federal contractors with the Department of Labor under the Fair Labor Standards Act, or FLSA, to fighting federal arbitration cases, to filing charges under the Occupational Health and Safety Act, or better known as OSHA, and the National Labor Relations Board to protect workers engaging in concerted activities to form unions in their workplaces, to initiating civil class action lawsuits, all resulting in collective victories for the working class struggles. Chris went on and has been a social justice activist for the past 30 years and founded his 501c3 nonprofit reentry program in 2019 called Lock Nation Inc. to help and assist offenders across the state of North Carolina with mental health and social economic resources and mentorship to both adults and at-risk youth. In 2019, Chris created an entrepreneur graphic design business to help aid in the revolutionary messaging around the world and share the workers' power messaging via t-shirts and signage. In this long, protracted working class struggle, Chris believes that there is a methodology to advance the working class and develop platforms that allow workers to see the light while having a seat at the table. Chris Hollis is a member of the Black Workers for Justice and National UE Union organizer and member of the UE 150. Chris has been a key leader and organizer for the poultry rendering industry, organizing a union movement in North Carolina in 2019 through 2021. Chris has also engaged in organizing city workers throughout North Carolina, up to cities in Virginia, Virginia Beach, Newport News, Norfolk, and Portsmouth municipal union movement. As a labor and social organizer, Chris continues to fight for workers' rights. Chris believes in educating and training workers how to fight for their right to have a voice for change. As a trade labor organizer and revolutionary, Chris wholeheartedly believes that you must become the change you are looking for, and that can only be achieved through collective action, i.e., an open hand slap will only get your attention, but a closed fist will put you to sleep. With that being said, keep your fists up. Keep it up. Chris Hollis is available for private consultation, motivational speaking, community outreach programs, and graphic custom designs. So we are so thrilled and happy to have both of these gentlemen here with us today. And if you know anything about being in public service, you tend to be some of the lowest paid people, some of the hardest working people, and you will find that there is not a lot of balance between the worker and management. There's a big gap between the income between those two. So we're thrilled to have them on the show today. Again, we like to commend Joe Madison, all the work that he did, because he never stopped fighting for the average Joe. His name's Joe Madison, and he never stopped fighting for the average Joe. So we're very happy to have these two gentlemen with us today. Hi, Chris. Hi, Terry.
Hello.
We didn't lose him, did we? Okay, here they come.
Okay. Hey, y'all.
Chris, good to see you.
He's the only one. I'm gonna have to check with the other one.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, Chris, we got a lot going on down here in the city of Virginia Beach, don't we?
Yes, we do.
So that means we gotta be able to fight. You know, gotta put on your whole armor.
That's right.
You can't come half stepping. You gotta come out here. You gotta put your whole armor on, especially when it comes down to collective bargaining. Because I'm sure you've spoke before our council and talked to members of council with regards to your concerns with regards to the members of the workers here in the city of Virginia Beach, especially the public utility workers. So share with us a little bit about what you have been doing to try to protect these people's rights and to give them better benefits here in the beach.
Yes, thank you, Georgia. I first want to give a shout out and a fist up to Brother Joe Madison for his hard revolutionary work and being the change, you know, part of the change that as we are reaping some benefits today because of the struggle.
Absolutely.
And we're still struggling, but that's how we grow. It's through struggle collectively.
Absolutely.
But as far as Virginia Beach, we have been organizing in Virginia Beach for a total of 3 years now, going on 4. It all stemmed from in 2020 when the sanitation workers in Virginia Beach went on strike.
Okay.
We have to really understand what that meant. And it's on YouTube. You know, people can Google it to look at the action. But those workers grew consciousness. They became self-organized. It didn't take no outside entity, no union coming in to organize those workers.
Correct.
Those workers were self-organized because of the struggle. They knew that they were tired of the same old thing happening. No changes, no raises. You know, during COVID, that changed the whole dynamics of labor.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of workers, a lot of jobs went remote.
Correct.
You know, but you still had those blue collar workers out there picking your trash up, servicing your maintenance on your city, you know, utilities, you know, public work sectors. They still had to go out there and be exposed, you know, to this pandemic. They didn't receive raises. The supervisors who sat behind the desk that did remote work, they received all the money.
Correct.
But these hard workers every day never received nothing. And they were tired. And when those workers stood down and refused to take their trash out, imagine what the community said. When they took their trash out the night before and stood at that curb and went to work for 10 hours and came back and the trash still there, they got on their telephone. They could have been lollipops and gumdrops, but when they seen that trash still in that can, they was discombobulated. They had, hey, somebody got to answer to this. I am a taxpayer.
Exactly.
And so immediately, the city manager met with those workers in their yard. They gave them bonuses almost immediately to raise up their wages. They gave them new equipment almost immediately. Something that the city could have been done, but refused to acknowledge the workers.
Exactly.
And so since then, it's been a tsunami effect. Other workers that seen this felt left out.
Right.
They felt left behind. They felt disenfranchised because what makes your job more important than mine? See, what the community and fellow workers need to understand is that your labor keeps this city operating.
Absolutely.
Your labor is your worth. You need to understand your worth because that's what your labor is to all those that you service through your toiling every single day. When we get up in the morning and we flush that toilet and it back up on us, that means somebody got to get that thing flushing.
Absolutely.
Nobody's thinking about the public utility workers that work in sanitation. You know, nobody's thinking about when they turn that water on in that shower, when that water come running out, who keep that water flowing. See, city workers do.
Correct.
We give homage and respect to the police and the fire for what they do as essential emergency personnel. But see, without public works and public utility workers, they can't do their job.
Absolutely.
If there's a house on fire and that fire department roll up and and hook that connection to that fire hydrant, and that pressure ain't up, because public utility workers are responsible for that, that house gonna burn down like a match.
Exactly.
If there is an emergency or domestic violence and the police got to go to a call, but there's a tree in the road, they need streets and maintenance to get that tree out. They can't go to that emergency. So we're talking about today those that have not been recognized and who have always been forgotten. And those are the city workers.
And do you find that department, those two departments, public works, public utilities, have a huge amount of people who are people of color?
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
Do you find that they don't have a lot of supervisors and management that are also people of color, even though the largest population has a tendency to be people of color?
That is correct.
That's correct.
That is correct. And not to forget other city departments, which we call units as well, such as human services. You know, a good majority of those VTech workers, those workers that work in the homes with special needs people, are Black.
Right.
And we know historically domestic workers were majority Black workers. You know, but one thing that I love about the UE 111 is that there is a lot of diversity, because we do know that we have an overwhelming population of African-American workers, you know, that are working these departments to keep the city running. We still have white workers. We still have Latina workers. We still have all these other workers that are a part of this melting pot, you know, that want change to happen together.
Correct.
You know?
And that's significant, because a lot of times, you know, we have a tendency to go out and we put our neck out there on the front line, and we don't have anybody standing with us. And then in many instances, they sometimes go behind our back and they get a little handout or whatever, and they try to keep it to themselves. And so they do that a lot of times in these businesses, in city government, and say, okay, well, we're gonna call this group over here and we're gonna give them a raise, but we're not gonna give the Black people a raise. So even though we've been out there on the front line, we've been out there opening the doors for everybody, we find ourselves a lot of times the last one to receive the reparations for the work that we've done. And that's can be very troubling to our community, because if we're not receiving any of the benefits, that means it takes us that much longer to be able to move up that ladder. For instance, buy a house or provide the proper care that maybe a family member need. It could be a child or it could be a parent. And because all of our money is being sucked out to just survival, we find ourselves, instead of surviving, instead of thriving, we are barely surviving. And so that's also a major issue when it comes to what's taking place in our cities. So it's not just Virginia Beach, it's around when it comes to public service employees.
That's right. That's right. Well, what you said, Georgia, is so true. I would like for our listeners and the audience to understand, you know, I want to give a quick educational scenario, if I can, about how important collective bargaining is. And I challenge everyone to do your research, you know, Google it. You know, the Virginia Beach Code came out in 2021, 40.1-57.2, which is the collective bargaining ordinance law, I will say, for city workers, which are municipal workers. Forever and a day, the South, to include Virginia, has been under the Jim Crow law. We got so many of them.
Give us that number again, because the listening audience, we definitely want them to pull that information up and share that information with others, because they may have family members that are working for their local city governments.
Yes,
so
they can actually Google the Virginia Code 40.1-57.2. And that is the collective bargaining state law.
Okay.
And that right there is the context help educating our listeners, our community, and even our workers who are essential, who need to understand that their labor at this point can change. They can gain that respect, that seat at the table. They're able to negotiate over the wages. So many workers in Virginia, and I want to say, and I'm going to just guesstimate out there because I deal with workers every day, that it's at least 60% of our workers that work 2 jobs. You know,
and that's just way too much.
It's too much because now you're looking at a lot of compounding issues, right? If you work in 2 jobs, your first primary job, you're going to work between 8 to 10 hours.
Correct.
Your second job going to be a part-time job. You might work 4 to 5 hours. Now, you done spent about 17 hours on jobs, and it's only 24 hours in a day. How much time are you going to spend with your family?
Exactly.
How much time are you going to get to rest?
Exactly.
How much time are you going to get to pay your bills and do necessary things without being at risk?
Correct.
See, your safety then becomes compromised because we were designed to be able to sleep at night and be up during the day.
Exactly.
Right. So when you start compromising that, you become incoherent in certain things. You can become complacent in doing things unsafe on the job. And then next thing you know, you're getting hurt or somebody getting killed, Lord forbid. But that's how important your labor is. You know, without your labor, we have no economy. Our societies cannot function. We all play a vital role in keeping our society moving forward. But the ones that are toiling for a living, the ones at the bottom, they're not getting that respect. They're not getting the acknowledgement, you know, and they're not getting the changes that they need.
Correct.
And that's very important. So with collective bargaining, workers,
and that is so important. That is so very important that people understand that the work that you're doing, the work that Terry is doing, is going to impact them, but it's also going to impact generations following them.
That's right.
Go ahead.
That's right. Because one thing we're looking at is something historical. You know, you're going to have soldiers on the front line for change.
Absolutely.
And that's how it's been throughout the Black community forever and a day.
Absolutely.
You know, March 28, 1968, Brother Martin Luther King went to Memphis, Tennessee, where he went on strike with sanitation workers. 2 workers were killed like the week before, you know, by faulty equipment.
And because they were so tired.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
They had nowhere to rest.
That's right. And and where was OSHA, right? Where was the safety, services at? You know, so something had to be done. Seldomly, history has a tendency to repeat itself. You know, the Bible tells me there's nothing new under the sun. So I take into account everything, and I'm thankful for everything. And so, you know, we all have to play a vital part in the change that we need by supporting collective bargaining. With collective bargaining,
what does the community need to do? And I want to give a shout out to Venus. She popped up and listening and everything. So I want to give a shout out to Venus Marshall, who's listening to us today. But what can the community do? Because a lot of times there are activists out here, and many times they find themselves almost like alone. And so when things are taking place, there are other people who receive the benefits of the work, but they don't do the work. So what can the community do?
Well, the community, for one, we need the community. Workers are part of the working class community. So we're essentially a big family, but we have to bring forth awareness. And when we bring forth that awareness, then we can educate our community. So these workers have been petitioning. They've been going to these council meetings. What we need from the community is support in several different ways. For one, call your city councilman in your district. Let them know you're standing behind this collective bargaining for city workers. You know, you can log on to UE 111, UElocal111.org. You know, you'll see the Virginia Beach Workers, it's their site, and be able to, you know, support. They're on Facebook, they're on Instagram, they're on X, you know, used to be Twitter. Yeah, they're pretty much on all these platforms. Because what was really important besides the community support, is for their fellow workers to understand they have to wake up and be a part of this change, because you're fighting for yourself.
Right.
You're fighting for your livelihood. Too many times we sit back and we complain about, I'm tired of working 2 jobs. I'm tired of these low wages. But see, we can be sick and tired of being sick and tired. But if you ain't doing nothing behind that talk, nothing is ever going to change.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's so important. So to our listening audience, we have Chris Hollis here with us. And Chris, of course, is a social justice and trade labor union organizer. So he's the one that's behind the scenes, in front of the group, organizing them and teaching them how to organize so that they have collective power. And there's not 1 or 2 people, but they're working together as a unit, pushing back against city governments and those who are not providing fair wages, good benefits. And really a lot has to do with safety, because if someone is in a situation where they're having to work 2 and 3 jobs, that's unsafe for them to be on that truck the next day because they didn't get enough rest the night before. And so it's critically important that we have people out here like yourself fighting on behalf of the public service workers.
Thank you, Georgia. Yes. Again, it's very important, that the community attend, either listen, or show up in person, to a city council meeting. Because see, one thing about the Black community that I always stress is we have to be politically educated. If we want anything to change, legislative laws have to be changed.
Correct.
And we doing that every day. Look at the crisis the country is in, and I ain't gonna go into that.
Right.
It's because our everyday working class people are the democracy.
Correct.
I learned in civics when I was in school many years ago that, demo as people perceive means power. So if we truly are a democracy, we have to act on that power that we inherently have. Because if we don't, we see these laws are changing for the special interest groups and for those in the 1%. But yet we as the Black community been struggling since the early 1600s, if not 1590 something. Right?
Absolutely.
We understand what struggle is. It could be a nuclear fallout. We like the roaches, the only thing surviving because we know how to live with less.
Absolutely.
But those days are over with.
Yeah. And the next generation, they're like, look, I don't want to have to do the same thing. And they should not have to.
That's right.
We should really be doing something different in order to have a different outcome. Because if what we have been doing was working, none of us would be in this situation today. It means that we would now be able to have, the businesses that we should have in our community. We should have our own hospitals, our own banks, our own grocery stores. It's a shame that in 2024 we got food deserts all over our primary communities, and that's ridiculous. Especially prior to us, when our people came out of enslavement, they owned thousands of acres of land, and they grew their own food. And there was a place where people could go and get food because they were growing their own food. They had, they were architects, they were electricians, they were masons, because that's why we have the Prince Hall Masons today, because these guys knew their stuff, and they knew their stuff better than anybody. So we need to make sure that we are promoting that, as well as the college degrees. You can do both, or you can do one or the other. You can still have trades and all, and make a good living. And so we need to promote that as well, because sometimes people, they want to put these status symbols on stuff. Well, food ain't got no status. It's food. Okay.
That's right.
If you're hungry, you want food. So it doesn't matter whether you're paying for your food with a plumbing income, or whether you're paying your paying for your food from a lawyer's income, because if we watch, we'll find that there are plenty of lawyers that are not making as much money as the plumbers by the time they pay for their office space and a secretary and all the other things that they have to pay for. At the end of the year, you find out that they really didn't make that 6-figure income, and they definitely didn't do the double-digit 6-figure income. That's for sure.
Right. That's right.
So we want to make sure that we educating our kids on all fronts and not just acting as if there's only one way, to get to a certain outcome.
That's right. That's right. Not to forget, not only are you working, your labor is paying your bills, but when you get that paycheck, you like just caveating off what you just said, Georgia, making the 6 figures, the more you make, the more they take. That's what the old saying is, right? So you now in the 40% taking bracket. So $100,000, Uncle Sam going to take about 40% of that.
Correct.
And what have they given me? Correct. And I've been working for me and my family, right? So that's just another talking point. But understanding
that's important. That's important. So that those of you who are listening today, I always like to make a few announcements. One, the NAACP has a First Fridays, and tomorrow is the first Friday in March, and it's at Black Eyed Peas. It starts. It's kind of like a happy hour, so somewhere between 5 and 5:30, you can get over to Black Eyed Peas. It's a Black-owned business. We do what we can to support our Black-owned businesses at the NAACP. The objective is for us to get to know each other throughout our communities and everything. And so if you're not doing anything tomorrow night, we invite you to come out for a social event. And then the next thing I want to announce is I am applying for the open seat on the school board, and that is District 4. I'm excited about that because in District 4, we have a very diverse community over in the Bayside area, the Campus East, Lake Edwards. It's an area that has a huge population of young people, and it's an excellent opportunity to have an impact. And my message is we want to make sure that the work that we're doing is for the let down, the left out, and the left behind. We want to make sure that they're at the table as well. And so my goal is to, once I am appointed, because I speak in the positive, once I am appointed, is to fight on behalf of these young people. I'm not your typical thought leader. I believe in being a visionary. And so my objective, of course, is to do everything that I can to change the outcomes in our community. I have been watching over the years, and we see these Title I schools, and we don't see any real significant changes taking place in the Title I schools. We see situations where our schools need to be redone, rebuilt, refurbished, redone, and somehow that money can go all across the whole entire city and get these other schools built, but just don't ever seem to make it over into our community. So those are some of the things that I'm very concerned about. I'm definitely concerned about our young people. I want our young people to dream bigger. If we can have a Oprah Winfrey, and we can have a David Stewart billionaire, and we can have a Robert Smith billionaire, then there's no reason why some of our children cannot come out and become billionaires as well. And so I'm looking for our young people to recognize not only that they are the best, but recognize their brilliance. And so my focus is going to be on our young people, on our teachers, and pushing them toward brilliance. It's not good enough for me to lower the bar. I believe we should have high expectations for our children, and we should be raising that bar, and we should be working with them so that they can achieve all that they can achieve, and not just be, hey, Terry, good to see you, and not just be minimum. We want them to do the maximum. Terry, can you hear us?
I can hear you well. Can you hear me?
Yes. Good to have you, my dear. Good to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, yes, absolutely. We're excited about you being here today and just kind of share with us because you are the president of the union here in Virginia Beach, the UE 111. I like that. Triple one. So tell us a little bit about what's going on and how we can be able to assist you and your endeavors.
What's going on is we need our employees and the community input also. And for those that know city workers, tell them to get involved in their union. You know, it's very educational how we're doing this. Is to teach them how to really fight the system because we've been down so long. And I remember back in the day when I first started with the city, we had to rely on George Nims to come help us do grievances and stuff like that. Well, a union gonna educate them to do the grievances and the gripes and all of that, and any kind of disparity that they have. And you know, I guess we're dealing with a different class of people where it won't like it was back in Martin Luther King days, where when you see a rally coming, we're gonna be there.
Correct.
Well, and nowadays they say we're gonna rally. Oh, I got something to do.
I know.
But you know, I mean, it's to educate them that you need to be there. You're an employee. You sign the cards. You need to be there.
Correct.
Help your members and your union fight for what you're sitting in the closet talking about.
Correct.
And
they can have a lot of conversations at the barber shops, but don't show up at city council, can't they?
Exactly. Exactly. And then when you go back to work, what happened? Why was he there?
Exactly.
United we stand, divided we fall.
Exactly.
You sit back talking to your comrades. I mean, you still a closed mouth because you still ain't trying to get fed because you should be out there saying something.
Absolutely.
And that's my motto. A closed mouth don't get fed.
Absolutely.
And you know, this city have been having their foot in our chest way before I even got there. And I've been there 35 going on 36 years.
Wow.
And a man shouldn't have to work that long to get a decent retirement.
Correct.
That's right.
And they've been robbing us for years. The whole 35 years I've been there. Because they had a sick leave bank. Nobody know what happened to that sick leave bank. But I know I put 40 hours in and they can't get it back. So somewhere down the line, somebody did something with that bank. But that's just one of the disparities we are having. And management, wow, it's unreal. There's so much unfair practice that's going on in a lot of these departments. And I didn't learn that until I became the chair of UE. And it's ridiculous. You talk about racism, nepotism, everything. Good old boy system. And this is what a union help fight these things. And as long as we stand down, we'll never get up.
Correct.
That's right.
Correct. And I like what you said. As long as we stand down, we will never get up. And that is something that is so critically important that we get our people to understand. And I like you said, united we stand, divided we fall. I have another one. United we bargain, divided we beg. So if we want to bargain, we want to be at the table to bargain, we need to get together and unite so that we don't have to keep begging, because it's time for us to stop standing in the food line begging when we have done all the heavy lifting. We did all the hard work. We worked on behalf to make a better city.
That's right.
And everything. And so there should be no reason in 2024 that we should still be begging. Right now, we should be bargaining for the things that we need and the things that we want.
Exactly. And as city workers, all we asking for is a seat at the table.
Correct. And that's critically important. And having the right person at the table that is willing to fight, because one of the things that I have found, because I sometimes click on and look at who's serving on these various city committees and cities commissions and so on and so forth. And they go to these meetings and they sit down, they eat their cookies and they go back home. But they never open their mouth to fight for one issue while they're sitting around the table. And we definitely need people who are willing to speak up, speak out on behalf of the community with regards to these issues. Because I'm going to tell you, I look into other communities and they can be as poor as it get. They can have no teeth, one tooth. They could have no hair on their head or anything. And they will still fight when it comes to their little community or their little neighborhood or whatever. And we could go down there, got on our Sunday best, Sunday finest, and we get down there and we all sit there and we huddle together and can't get 3 people to go up to that microphone and say one word. No, you go ahead, you talk. And they rely on somebody else to talk on their behalf. And we have got to get them out of that. I think one of the things that would probably be helpful is to start bringing our young people to these city council meetings and write something out for them in advance and let them get in the habit. It'll start out with their reading, but after a while, it's going to get down in their spirit. And let me tell you, it's only going to be a few times before they're going to say, wait a minute, I'm ready now. And I'm going to go ahead on to speak on this issue, on that issue, or whatever. And I think that's going to be extremely helpful is if we start bringing our young people to these council meetings and allowing them the opportunity to stand up. And again, I think initially we may have to write the message out for them. But as time goes on, as they get in their spirit, you will see them standing up and speaking out on behalf of these issues that we care about.
I agree with that, Sister Georgia. I do want to just make a statement. I always do a lot of paraphrases, but the context is what's important. Correct. And I look at being an organizer, either the community or labor, is that we have to look at ourselves as being farmers. You know, what's a farmer's job, right? It's to grow them crops.
Correct.
But he has to lay them seeds.
Correct.
And them seeds got to be on tilled soil. See, it has to be conditions in order to get whatever it is you're going to put in that ground to grow the way it needs to be. Absolutely. That means there got to be a lot of weed eating. You got to get them weeds from around them crops. That's all them distractions and negativity that can come into our working class youth or even those that's trying to be effective. So we have to give people the platforms. We have to give them the mentorship. We have to give them the education and the training and burgeon them into a product to where when it's time to reap their harvest, you got a plentiful harvest.
Correct.
Because we need leaders.
Correct.
And that's what we need in the working class community is leaders. And for all the listeners that are our city workers and just a worker in general, I salute you. I respect you for what you do every day. Because what you do every day makes it easier for me. I ain't got to go cook. I just go to a fast food restaurant. You know, I ain't got to use no plunger on my toilet because I got brothers and sisters in public utilities going to make sure them pump stations is operating properly. So there's a lot of things we could be thankful for. But I want to challenge all the workers, the city workers, to get involved with your union because they're not just fighting for themselves, they're fighting for you too.
Absolutely.
And you have to be a part of the change that you're looking for. So I want to challenge folks to come to a union meeting on Tuesdays, every other Tuesday. You know, come to a city council meeting. You know, get to know your coworker because that's your family member. A majority of us as workers spend more time with our coworkers than we do our own family.
Correct.
But you can tell me, you work around somebody for how many kids they got. You don't know their last name.
Correct.
You don't know their birthday. And you work around them more than you be around your own family. We have to change that. We have to
that's an excellent point. Hello, Juanita. I see Juanita is up here. How you doing? You know, and one of the other things is start having small gatherings. If you're working together, there's nothing wrong with getting together. And I don't mean going to these restaurants and spending a lot of money. when springtime get here and the weather gets a little better, everybody brings something, just go out to a local park or something like that and talk about what's going on in the city and share some of the things. And one of the things that a buddy of mine always talk about, he talks about being loyalty. You gotta be unified, but you gotta be loyal. You cannot be all over the map. And the minute somebody say something, you say, well, I'm gonna go and leave that behind because they told me they're gonna give me a spot. Well, they may give you a spot, but the same spot that they give you today, tomorrow they'll go and look at your record and figure out how they can get rid of you altogether. And now you out there by yourself and you ain't got nobody watching your back. You ain't got nobody covering you because you did not stay loyal to the group. And so that's one of the things that I think needs to be pushed more is loyalty.
And I agree with that, Sister Georgia. And I like the caveat on loyalty because it is vital. But what was really important is building those relationships to get that loyalty. You see, we have to build relationships. Building relationships builds bridges. We have elected officials and city council. Who put them there?
Exactly.
The community. They have to do a due diligence by the community. We shouldn't have an outrageous homelessness population.
Correct.
You shouldn't have to have, an outrageous, children, youth violence going on right now. A lot of these issues affect essentially the Black community.
Absolutely.
A lot of resources aren't going into the Black community.
Correct.
And that's the dynamics we have to change. And only through education can we do that.
Exactly.
We could talk about a holistic issues that affect us as a cultural people, because we can go out there like Sister Georgia was saying earlier. A lot of other ethnic groups will use Black people to come and join in on their struggle. We've been struggling since slavery.
Correct.
We still struggling today. Jim Crow laws is another form of slavery. When it comes to incarcerated youth, incarcerated adults, that's free labor.
Correct.
They're making billions of dollars off the backs of our people with free labor. Even with the city workers having to work 2 or 3 jobs, essentially, they should never have to do that.
Correct.
They become unsafe at the job. They unsafe at home. You got family issues, domestic issues now because the family want attention. You can't afford to give it to them. You got to go work another job. I mean, it's time out for that. Pay our people what we worth.
Absolutely.
That's it. Pay them what we worth. Give them a seat at the table. Let them collectively bargain. But we need workers to come together to do that.
Absolutely. Again, listening audience, we have Mr. Terry Green. Terry Green is UE Local 111 Chair or President for the City of Virginia Beach Public Utilities. And we also have Mr. Chris Hollis. And Chris is a union organizer, social justice trade union organizer. And he works on behalf of the public service, federal government, and others to make sure that these folks get organized and are able to fight for the issues that are important, that allows them to make a decent salary, have decent benefits, have safe work environments, because all of those things are important, and place them in a position where they're not working 2 and 3 jobs, because that is not acceptable in 2024. Yes, I want to thank them so much for being here with us today. We're coming up on 12:49. Okay, who wants to do their final comments first, Chris or Terry? Either one is fine with me.
I could do it.
Is that a brother Terry?
Okay.
If, anybody that's in the audience know in the professionals, human services, as social workers and all of that, talk to them. Reach one, teach one. Talk to them, let them know they have a union. Willie Lynch was a bad boy when he wrote that letter. He kept us apart. And the same way the city kept us apart about not having a union, not able to have a union. But they can reach out to somebody that's in the library, IT tech, human service, and professional. Reach out to them and let them know it is legal to have a union. A lot of people are running scared, and supervisors are scared of putting disparity in these employees' mind that they cannot form a union, and that's not so. And if they need to talk to somebody, tell them to talk to the council. They will help them with that disparity. So if anybody on this call can reach out to these people and let them know to go to the website, sign up for the union, get engaged. That'll help us a lot. And thank you.
All righty. Well, Terry, we want to thank you so much for being with us. And Chris, you want to give us some final comments, some words of wisdom?
Yes, ma'am. Again, just giving homage to Brother Joe Madison, you know, for being so revolutionary and being the change that he was looking for. We are standing on the shoulders of giants today.
Correct.
You know, Brother Martin Luther King, Brother Malcolm X, Fannie Lou Hamer, Ella Baker. I mean, I can go on down the list. These people became the change they were looking for. And what's going on now with collective bargaining in Virginia Beach is historical. We're putting footprints in the sand. What you do today will affect you tomorrow. What you don't do today, it will still yield the same results. Nothing. So we have to stand together as a community and as city workers, you know, reach out, join your union. If you are married to someone or dating someone or affiliated with someone, have a family member that's a city worker, urge them to join their union because they have protections with the union. Too many workers that I represent in grievance processes, you know, get fired. Too many of us losing jobs, and that affects your family. If you don't have no income, you're going to suffer. Correct. So I just want to leave this with our listeners. Become the change that you're looking for. No matter if you're a city worker, no matter whatever the situation is in your life, you can change. As long as we breathing, we got opportunity. And so I want to leave y'all with that. And again, if you have any questions, you want to learn more information, please go to www.ue111.org. And you can pull up our union, everything the union has been doing. I urge every city worker to get on board because the more numbers, the more power. And when we drop cards, resorting back to the Virginia Code 40.1-57.2, read and understand that law that applies to you. Because when you present them cards, them union cards, meaning everybody signing a card, you're building your power. You're able to negotiate under the law. You're able to exercise that. But without your participation, you know, we're just one less number. And so, again, to be the change, you have to be the change. So I'd like to say thank y'all for listening in. And thank you, Sister Georgia. And Brother Bob, and Brother Terry.
Well, Terry and Chris, thank you so much. That has been very educational, especially when you talked about the law that's on the Virginia Code, that Virginia Code. See, that is very critically important that people know what the code is and where to go and find that code so that they can read up about it. The other thing that is important is get your union cards. Join your local unions. And this is important because there is power in numbers. Yes. A lot of times we have so much trouble because there's only one or two of us. But when we come together as a collective and we join those unions and we increase our numbers, they're going to stop when they are called upon to change routes, okay?
Yes.
Because they look at those numbers. The biggest thing, the greatest thing that the civil rights movement had was the numbers. Look at all those young people and older people and parents and children that were out there on the front lines. It wasn't 10 or 15 people. We're talking hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds. When they decided to do the bus boycott and got off that bus, and those suckers were not making a dime, their mind began to change because that was That was their bag.
That's
and
right.
they did not like using that bag. And so there is power in numbers. And so if you ever want to make a serious change when it comes to those who are in charge, who are in positions of power, bring up your numbers, get your numbers higher. As Dr. King would say, power is when you make a company like General Motors say yes when they want to say no. And they were able to do that because when they said, I'm going to shut you down, my people are not going to buy cars from you, we're not going to work for you, we're not going to do any of those things. Guess what? General Motors had a turnaround and they changed how they operated. So there is power in numbers, and we can say anything. We want to remind the people who are out there, join UE Local 111, Virginia Beach City Workers Union. That is critically important. There's thousands of you working. Now, can members of the school board join as city employees as well? Or does it have to be separate?
Yes, Georgia, that's good that you asked that, because the VBEA has their union. And they could reach out to Robin Gardner. She's one of the international representatives for that union. They're also fighting for collective bargaining. Teachers need a seat at the table.
Correct.
And right now they got to flip some seats. You know, it's all about flipping them seats. If they're not riding with you, they got to go.
They got to go.
They got to go.
Exactly. And that's the thing that we want to focus on is we want to find people who represent our interests, because a lot of times we look at strictly as political parties, and sometimes that is true, but sometimes you got to get rid of some of those people in the party that's supposed to be supporting you and replacing them with somebody else who actually is going to support you and your interests. So keep that in mind as well. And sometimes you got to remember that you want to do addition and multiplication, because if all you got is a 3-seat majority, that is not going to allow you to do all the things that you want. So learn how to do addition and multiplication, because if you need 60 votes, then you need, and you right now you got 51 people. You need 9 more people.
That's right.
So you got 9 people you need to get rid of and get your 9 people so you can get to your 60 votes. So I think that's very important that people understand how important it is. Numbers matter. And so again, thank you guys so much for coming out. We appreciate you coming, sharing with the audience today.
Thank you, Georgie.
Oh,
thank you.
So take care. And we give it a close out and have a few final comments. And you guys have a great afternoon. Again, it's always good to come to you. I am Georgia Allen with GA for Just Is, because it's just is the right time to do that, which is right. And so I do this every week at 12 noon. You're welcome to come and join us each week. Click on. And if you don't catch us live, you can catch us later by clicking on and Googling my name on YouTube and some of the other social media outlet. And you can look at some of my previous shows. And I don't bite my tongue, as you know. I'm straightforward. I believe that we should tell people the truth. And I believe that it's important that people know what is going on in their local cities so that they can be at the table and that they can make the changes that need to be made. With that being said, Henderson, we need you back to close us out. And thank you so much. And have a great afternoon.
All right. You've been listening and watching GA for Justice with your host, the community activist, Georgia Allen. And don't forget to share this link with other people on your platforms and let them know that it's about unity in the community. Until next time and next week, you've been listening to WVDM. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.